How you doing, folks? Papa Joe here. See if that helps any. I'm making a couple short videos tonight. Unfortunately, where I'm at out there in Kingman, it's wanting to take over an hour to upload them. That's an hour each. I just did one about the protest for Friday. Over an hour, and I can't afford that. That eats up my data. Something terrible to sit there and run for an hour like that. So I'll try to get them up tomorrow. Same thing with this one. I had somebody, who was that? They requested a little video, and I'll give you what I can of it. Let's see here. Night Rhymes Radio. Night Rhymes Radio 1. So, what they asked, how about a video of which CBs are better and terrible service here. I don't want to give it to me. But basically they was asking for CB and antenna advice. First off, CBs pretty much like trucks. It's just a matter of personal preference and what you've had the best luck with. A generic all-around good radio would be a Cobra 148. They're not very expensive, and like I said, they're a generic good all-around radio, and you can have a little work done to them to make them a pretty good radio. As for your antennas, for me, some of the best the luck I've had with them have been the Wilsons. Wilson 1000 and 2000, and they got a bunch more nowadays. I don't run a radio anymore. Got one laying up there, I ain't even hooked up. I quit running radio unless I was just forced to. I ran one when Pork Chop was still alive, just so that when me and him ran together, we could talk. I ran one when I did the rock and roll circuit because some of the places we backed into were pretty hairy. And there was a guy behind you on a handheld that would talk to you. And you didn't use your mirrors or nothing. You just sat here and stared out forward, and he told you what to do, and that's what you did. You know, if he told you to give it a little driver, you'd turn it over that way. Give me a little passenger, you'd turn it that way. You didn't look in your mirrors. If you looked in your mirrors, they'd come up and slap the mirror shut. I tell you, don't look at that damn mirror, listen to me. So I don't run a radio anymore. Used to talk a lot of skip. Used to talk a lot of trash. I used to have a lot of fun on the radio. And then in late 90s, mid 90s, oh, it just got terrible with the cussing, the race fights. Oh, it was terrible. And then my wife started riding with me. And if a woman got on the radio, she was instantly attacked and called bad names and propositioned, and I bet you my wife ain't said 24 words on the radio. And those would have been when we was running with somebody for a day or two, or somebody we knew, and they would have to ask her a direct question. And then only if I wouldn't answer for her. So I ain't interested in them anymore. I'll give you a few tidbits, old school. A lot of these trucks, we used to say the coaxial in them weren't no good. They ain't that bad anymore. They're okay. Unless you're wanting to get a real radio setup. If that's the case, you got to learn what you're doing. One of the most common mistakes I've seen people do is these trucks are wired. They've got the coaxial for 2 antennas. And a lot of drivers will break one or lose one or whatever, and they're trying to run their radio off of that one antenna. You're going to burn your radio up. What you need to do if you're going to do that, if you don't buy another antenna, replace it. There's a little Y up there. Get wherever your radio wire is, you'll find a little Y up there. And you need to disconnect the coaxial that don't have radio on it. Whatever you have to do up there. So, there's one little thing. Some of these, and we used to have tons of radio shops out here. You hardly see them anymore. And we all had our own favorites. There's a guy down there by my house. I wouldn't let him work on my FM. He's got an attitude, got a mouth, and when I started talking to him, he started talking to me like I was stupid, and I knew he didn't know what he was talking about. Not in my opinion. I asked him about, I just bought some antennas, getting ready to do that rock and roll thing. So you want to set the SWRs on my antennas for that radio? Oh, you don't have to do that stuff no more. Now, if you want me to just go take your money, they come out of the factory set. Well, yeah, they come out of the factory set, but depending upon what your setup is, if your SWRs are set right. Now, that's just my opinion. I could be wrong. That's just old school in me. It don't make sense to me. If we had to have them, SWRs, the radio and the antennas matched up before, or if you put a kicker in there, you have to have your radio turned down so that the kicker doesn't work, so they don't knock each other out. Point is make sure whoever you got doing any radio work has got a clue. The biggest thing you need to learn is that these truck driver technicians riding down the road, they're going to tell you how to set your radio up. I'd have me a big salt shaker. You can listen to the radio and you can tell if they have a really big radio, if they got a decent setup. If they've got a good setup, then you might want to listen to them. But if their radio don't sound no better than yours, they're just another know-it-all truck driver, and they'll get you in trouble every time. So be careful there. If you're in Oklahoma, by Oklahoma, Tennessee, Kansas line, there's a town called Bartlesville, Oklahoma. Quite a few trucks go up and down that road. I can't think the name of the road either, and it's a dadgummit, I can't think the name of it. I got a buddy Kelly there. He's an old truck driver. Health made him get out of the truck 20 years ago. One thing led to the other, and he wound up in a radio shop. Had his own radio shop. Now he just runs it out of the back room of his house. I told him I was making this video and I was going to give him a plug, and asked him to jump in and correct anything I might have said wrong, and to give a little advice, and told him feel free in whatever way he wanted to leave contact information. I doubt if he's going to leave you his phone number. I would suggest him leave an email or something. I don't know. I ain't got a clue how he'll do it. But if you ever get through Bartlesville, you need some radio work, he's the man for it. He ain't gonna rob you, and he knows the stuff okay for an Oklahoma guy. You know, worst thing about him is he ain't from Texas. But I try not to hold that against him. But Kelly, jump on there and leave a big old message. Question was, what was the best radio and antennas? And there ain't no such thing in my opinion. We all have our own thoughts and opinions on what's the best. I mean, I like the old Galaxies. I had a Northern Star, which is a big radio, a high-dollar radio. I couldn't stand it. I gave it to Kelly. Matter of fact, when me and Mom circled through there one time, I gave him a whole box of radios. Like right now, I probably got 8 radios at the house. 2 or 3 of them probably pretty big ones. But just all a matter of your personal opinion. Once again, as some of you are telling me you hate hearing me say, educate yourself. And to me, with the radio, the only way to educate yourself is to buy one. I'd suggest it be a 148 and start playing a little bit. I don't have a radio now, so I can't tell you. They used to be selling radios all the time in these truck stops. You know, drivers being broke and stuff, or having an extra one. Like I said, it wasn't nothing back in the day for a driver to have 2 or 3 radios in his truck. We always carried backups. And, you know, that's just how it was. So, I don't know if it's still that way. I know it wasn't a lot of help, but I answered your question to the best of my ability. That's what I try to tell you folks, is I will give you the honest truth of the way I see it. And I'm out of touch with CBs, but there's you some basics for it. God bless you. Remember, God loves you, and so do I. Enjoy that radio. If you're going big, they can be fun. That's something else I ought to warn y'all about, which years gone by, when they started putting these computers in here, a bunch of us used to run a lot of power, called it power and wire. We had some power and wire. We talked some skip. When these computerized trucks first started coming out, we started screwing them up. A lot of companies have policies about if you can have any kind of power, any power and wire. So they might not allow you to have kickers and all that stuff. So, and you definitely don't want to go running any extra wires to your batteries and all that stuff like we used to do. But some of us had some pretty big kickers. You just couldn't get enough off that. We had to do our own wiring, creative wiring. If you go doing that stuff, watch your P's and Q's, you might buy yourself a truck. You don't want to have to buy somebody else a truck. They get real expensive. Y'all have a good evening. If you go for it, I hope you enjoy it. Y'all have a blessed evening now. Good night.